Okay, so my name is Anna Clark, and I want to share something that a few things I've learned over the years while walking with God. Okay, first I want to find out, where is this chapter? I want to speak about the sheep and the goats, but also a few other things. I wanted to read Matthew. I believe it's Matthew 25. Really quick. Or let's see. Yeah, Matthew 25. And whenever the Son of Man may come in his glory, and all the holy messengers with him, then he shall sit upon a throne of his glory, and be gathered there together before him shall be all the nations, and he shall separate them one from one another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will set the sheep indeed on his right hand, and the goats on his left. Now, pause right there, otherwise I'm going to forget to add this right here. The right hand. This morning I've been studying about the right hand and how many times the Bible lists about the right hand. I have learned that the right hand is a hand of agreement. And also, many people that are looking with their physical eyes and trying to figure with their flesh brain what the Lord even means concerning the mark of the beast. They are looking on the surface, missing deeper things. Because the Lord is always looking in your forehead. He knows what your hand is in agreement with and what it's really in or doing, or what your heart really wants to do. And if you're really in agreement with the Spirit of God and how he's moving you. See, the sheep are saved, and the goats know him too. But the sheep follow the Spirit of God. How do you know that? Well, because when you continue to read in Matthew 25, that Jesus is saying that he's separating the goats and the sheep. Okay. And he says, when I hunger, you did. Okay, it says in verse 34. Then shall the king say to those on his right hand, come ye, the blessed of my Father, inherit the reign that hath been prepared for you from the foundation of the world. These are those that walk in mature sonship, that have learned to labor into the rest of God, to hear the voice of God, to be awakened in their spiritual senses, not walking around just thinking because you go to church or read your Bible that you are someone following the Spirit. But someone following the Spirit is in tune with the Spirit. Even sensing what God would say or want you to do in different situations. You move from there. You don't move from head knowledge. You move from just knowing in your spirit what he's seeing. You're seeing in the spirit realm. You're seeing in different dimensions. You're sensing things like that. But anyway, if you keep letting him slay your self-life, he takes you deeper, deeper, deeper into more mysteries and things like this. And it takes you from what you think is head knowledge and logic to experiences with him in the Spirit. So anyway, he wants those that are awakened to come inherit the reign. Just like in the book of Revelations, there's a remnant. They got a scepter. They're ruling. Okay. So anyway, Jesus gave the story. He said, I did hunger and he gave me food to eat. I did thirst and he gave me drink. I was a stranger and you received me, naked and you put around me clothing. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison or imprisoned and he came to me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see thee? When did we see you hungry or, without clothes or thirsty? And when did we give you these things? He said, they said, when did we see you as a stranger and received you, took you in, or naked, and we put clothing on you? And because I'm reading an old version of with old wording, I'm trying to make it so you can understand more modern, because your brain almost like gets stuck when you're hearing it spoken in an old English. So that's why I'm pausing a lot. And no apology. I'm just trying to make it simple. So the king says, and as much as you did that to one of these least of my brethren, even the least most messed up that even knows Jesus, you did it unto me. Then he shall also say to those on his left hand, go from me to the fire, the age-long fire that hath been prepared for the devil and his messengers. For I was hungry, you didn't give me anything to eat. I was thirsty, you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger, to your city or something, you didn't take me in or help me find a place to room. You didn't have any room in the inn. You didn't even put me in a shelter. You didn't shelter me. And I was sick and you didn't help me. I was in prison and you didn't come visit me or communicate with me, speak to me, write to me, pray for me, with me. Okay. Then shall they answer, they also saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry, thirsty, stranger, or naked? When did we not come and minister to you when you were in prison? And they're trying to think of, when did we see Jesus in these situations? And, they're just trying to piece it all together. And he said, basically, and as much as you didn't do it for the least of these, you didn't even do it for even me. And these shall go away to punishment age long, but the righteous to life age during or age long. Now, listen, when he speaks about food or feeding someone or clothing someone or giving them a drink or visiting them when they're in prison, it could be a literal state of hunger, thirst, being in prison, or needing clothing. It could be in a spiritual state. Did you follow the promptings of the Holy Spirit when it was leading you to help, to house, to feed, to give drink to clothe, even spiritually cover someone in prayer? And they might have been all out with all their clothes on, but they're running naked and ashamed in his presence. And they aren't even fully aware, perhaps, of their spiritual state, though they may know the Lord. You may have put your nose up at them and kept on walking. And a shepherd's heart will leave the 99 that they know is all right in the house to go out and get the one prodigal. The prodigal was still of the family. Anyway, the shepherd's heart will go and get that, and you'll even plead and pray on their behalf. And God would even have mercy if he wants to, because of your prayer, that their actions don't kick their butt as hard as it should for what they have called to themselves by being out of his will and out of his prompting. But God will use one that's walking by faith or in a stronger spiritual position at the time to even help and heal or house or minister to another. Maybe it's in a literal, practical needs way or a spiritual way, and actual evidence follows that, because signs and wonders will happen when you're following or being led of the Spirit. When the Spirit wants to heal someone, they will become healed. Anyway, so the Lord gives a lot of tests to see if you will help these different people in with needs that may be spiritual or just a literal, practical need that needs to be met. And he might ask you to give from your little to them. And actually, the ministry of the saints back in the day, when they talk about a good work or the service that I received from the Lord, you know, when the apostles talk about that, they are talking about even administrating or holding resources or taking in resources so that they can give to the saints that were in need. If the body of Christ was doing what it should, then government doesn't have to give and sustain a lot of needy people. So even though the Lord can show you issues in the government, and they do take God out of school, but, you know, and just different issues you'll just see in society. And then some services they do support and do that God doesn't really want you to do and support. But let's be honest that the truth is that they are picking up the ball that the believers have dropped. Now let's look at one of the last verses in Matthew 25, where it talks about, the last verse, and they shall go away to punishment age long, but the righteous to life age long. Now listen, the church age is over, but people will still play church. And somebody is always graduating into more awakened sonship. And as they start to see through these different buildings, sometimes in different organizations. But I do believe that good is in each one, and the Lord can use them to the extent that they will be yielded to the Holy Spirit, or to the extent that they would yield out or give out good deeds or services, spiritual or practical needs being met. So listen, he will use everybody where they're at, every organization where they're at, to the degree that they would let his wisdom work through them, or, you know, like that. So, you have to understand what righteousness is also, because in the New Testament, it talks about to do righteousness, or maybe it's even in like Psalms or Proverbs, to do righteousness. And the Lord's been highlighting that to me for years. You know, it means to do benevolent services. It means to help the saints. It even can mean to help someone that does not know him yet, and maybe they never will. But if you care, you would care for them too. If he leads you to help them in some way. And sometimes you really can't. Sometimes you can only, the most you can do for someone is pray. And that does work too. But the righteous are being led by the Spirit of God. And so they're sensing when the Lord's saying to go help someone, help the single mom, help the person that's struggling, help the needy. And sometimes he's telling you to help someone who keeps making stupid decisions, but he still wants you to help them. And because being by you is being a light, and by them being able to observe you and even receive from you can give them sense and a sense of direction, because in their thankfulness, they might start to look up to the Spirit of God that's in you. One of the apostles said, follow me as I follow Christ. So anyway, we're not saying, hey, I want everybody looking at me, copying me, you know, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Okay, so another thing is, we read Matthew 25 pretty much, and I explained what it is to do righteousness. Even in the Bible, it said good religion is this, or undefiled religion is this, to help the widows and the fatherless and the needy, So this is what God's heart is for. Also, I want to speak about what did the Lord mean in the end of Matthew 25 when he talks about the righteous are going to enter into life. There may be supernatural healing and reversal in your body of a sickness that you probably bore, like a Job, while you're walking through test times, and you still, like a Joseph, seemed to be in prison, but you were freeing other people that were locked up in some kind of way, maybe physical or spiritual, because Joseph knows where they're supposed to be going, but you look like you're going downhill, even though you know you're walking in light. You look like you're going down, but you know that God's with you and he's using you in those hard places, even to bless his other people, maybe other ministers and maybe other believers, and they just aren't teachers by now. But so when the righteous are going into life, it may be the healing, it may be their sudden breakthroughs, it may be their harvest time that the Lord's saying, enter into his joy, which you should already know. The joy, like the drunken glory, you should know his presence, and be able to tap in at any time. Really, if you can just deny your flesh, you could tap in, and let his peace surpass all the understandings of that which you are seeing around you that you think you understand is going on. And so if God teaches you that before he pushes you more into more ministry, or maybe reaching a bigger influence or more people or something, then thank God anyway, because he gave you a private moment to train you in the back lot, like you trained Moses anyway. And so I also want to speak about how he always wanted his priests to have treasuries. And that's why it said to the wise and the faithful, when he comes back, which you can't be looking with flesh eyes and your flesh mind to see when he's coming back. But in the time of your harvest, after your long testing and patience had its perfect work, then the Lord may raise you up and open a door that you may have tried to walk through before, but it wasn't working. But now you're trying to walk through. And also, and he may give you, let you heal nations. Nations can be just different people groups in your city, just different families in your city, and different generations in your city, different races or whatever, if you want to say that, in your city, different cultures in your city. Okay. I want to talk about also, so the priests, even in the book of Proverbs, it talks about how the priests, if you love wisdom, then she'll lead you into riches, yea, even enduring riches. And so that even sounds like storehouses. That even sounds like treasuries, or that you are a place of resources. It doesn't mean you're a billionaire necessarily, but it could be if Jesus wanted to give it to you. If he finds that you're faithful, or he's given you an idea and let it prosper and no demons have hindered it, then he can put those things in your hand. But the wise and the faithful, when the Spirit of God comes and he's checking on you, though he's always here, but in the appointed time, when he is coming to check on you, then in all your tests that you had to walk through, that you just know God was with you, and you just knew that there were tests that you had to walk through. And if you proved not to be perfect, but to be wise and faithful, because maybe your attitude was not always perfect, or action even, but all he has is like flawed people to pick from, to do a work from. So just get over yourself on that. That's what we have to do. So, and just be glad that he would even use you, and even that heart that you have inside of you that would want to do the works that he has inspired within your spirit to do. The wise and faithful, he said that he's going to entrust. And he said to the wise and faithful to enter into the joy. And also that he was saying to the wise and faithful that in the time, and there's going to be a time when he's going to entrust more to you so that you can feed the household. So the household of God, to feed even from your spiritual wells of truth that the Lord has given you, treasuries of just wisdom and experience and with God. So he may give you actual, literal, practical resources that meet the needs of a natural man and helps them. And that in turn would touch their heart and make them to have much thanksgiving to God, even according to, I believe it's 2 Corinthians 7. It could be 1 Corinthians 7. But it talks about how the apostles had, they were thanking God that they had this gift or this service or these good works so that they can help people's actual needs. And when you help someone's actual need that God allowed or created, he allowed there to be a need so that someone with the Spirit of God would be sent to bless them, and it will make them thank God. And sometimes you can bring someone to God just by doing something that really, really matters to their heart. Not answering a greed, but answering an actual need. It can make people thank God. And so that is even a service of hospitality, benevolence, caring for the saints, or caring for the needy. Who said the needy is only those that don't know him? So obviously, I didn't need to say that, but there it is. So in Proverbs, it talks about the priests getting riches so that even being given riches so that they can give out of the resources. So it's not just wisdom, but practical needs. And that needs to be the picture of the modern day church. So if you're going to have a church building, brick and mortar, then it should help that. If you're going to have a ministry, maybe even just online, that can still feed people spiritually. Okay. Now, the Pharisees, the modern day Pharisee, or someone who's self-righteous, needs to blow a trumpet on all that they do. And so that's when God was saying, don't let the left hand know what your right hand is doing. Because it should be an excitement between you and God that you have met a need. Also, I want to say that if you can be one that will sacrifice when he leads you to, when wisdom backs it up, or you just know that he's leading you to, then and it's coming out of you and out of your resource or out of your energy, but God's telling you, yes, do it. Yes, do it. God will test you in that way to see if you can help another. Even if you would even work in another's field, sometimes you sow in another's field, or sometimes you are working under a boss, or sometimes you're working under a pharaoh for a time, or sometimes you're just giving out of what you have to help another. And that is a test to see if you are worthy to hold more. If you don't let the riches get you and don't go straight after riches for the love of it only, then he can trust you with more. He may even have you learn how to depend strictly upon him and not even the work of your hand. Okay, so that may be for a time and seasons, and that may be a long time, but you always see God come through. You got to know that the way that he's leading you, and you'll know by the confirmations and by his Spirit and his yes, his no, his wait. You just got to sense. You got to learn. You got to let him train you. The other thing is that I also want to say, okay, I was going to say something else. So the other thing is you got to let him lead you. So that's what I was saying. I'm trying to remember the one last thing I want to say. Well, I forgot, but I do want to say this too, that it is a time where the Lord is raising up new leadership. It doesn't mean that he's done with the old, but there is like a remnant that's rising that he's secretly trained, and he's trained them different things, and they have their treasuries full, and they're waiting to give out wisdom, maybe even receive platforms so that they can share more with more people. And he wants to do that. And so he's opening doors that have been hindered for a long time for some people. And he's helping you to go through so that you can help others. It is the time of the rewards of the wise and of the wise and faithful, but yet I would like to say that there is always a time where there will always be the earth, as Ecclesiastes said, and just as there will always be the earth, there will be the time of the reaping and sowing, and there will always be a time of the harvest. So even though there's like a shift or a wave of new people coming up in the future, there will be another wave of more people coming up. But you don't ever want to be that ministry that's like can't go with whatever the flow is that he's trying to do. You don't want to be that ministry that cannot move with him, because then you are very much stuck, and you may have built something on an old thing when the Lord has moved on. So anyway, the righteous, the wise and the faithful are inheriting right now. And also, let me just check over my notes and see if I read everything that I wanted to hit on. It's the time where the people that are at his right hand are receiving right now. You know, there was a mother that was like, "Can both my sons sit on your side?" or whatever. And Jesus was like, "Well, that seat is prepared for whoever it's prepared for, but I can't tell you who right now." And so anyways, it is a time where those that have the mind of Christ and those that are like a remnant rising, sons manifesting, they're mature in the spirit. They're not technon. They're mature in the spirit, and those he is placing. And it may be in positions that you think are secular, but if you got the understanding by him what your mission is and what you're doing, then you would understand that some of those things out there are even fitting and hitting and helping a practical need in society. Oh, the other thing. Oh, I know. I wanted to speak about the rich man. The rich man. Jesus didn't have an issue really with the man being so rich in the Bible. It was the fact that that guy did not understand how to lay up treasure in heaven. He loved his riches and his position and feeling the security of what he owned, rather than putting his full trust in Jesus. And this is the test also. If you can't pass all the ites mindsets, those enemies, those and the greed, and if you can't pass the dying to your self-life tests, and also the thinking you're sustained by bread alone, which could be cash even, if you can't pass those tests, then the Lord can't really, for his kingdom's sake, entrust those things to you. Not saying that there's not rich people out there, people with a lot more out there, or whatever, but they may get it, but maybe they also, well, they're probably not a threat in the spiritual kingdom anyway. A lot of people have that aren't a threat to the spiritual kingdom, and that's why they have. Because as soon as you start being following your call, and understanding who you are in Christ more and more, and the enemy doesn't like when you wake up in the morning, then the enemy tries to stifle all of your efforts to get or to do or to grow or increase anything, because he's afraid. Because if somebody with the good kingdom clue has good currency, then they would be able to affect the masses, or even just a little portion in your city to a greater degree. And they can function like the government of God, which is the church. So, now Jesus didn't have an issue with the rich man being rich, but the problem was he didn't understand how to love God above everything that was here. He couldn't find his security in God. Okay. Maybe before you come to know him, he allows you to prosper so much, and then you don't understand why he's asking you to leave everything. But it's probably a test for a while, though you have to say yes, like it's for a lifetime of giving it up. And then you just see him sustain you, and he trained you in that time in the wilderness. And then later he puts an idea in your hand, or the power to get wealth back in your hand. When after he's tested you a while, after you suffer a while, then he will establish you or reestablish you in something, and that now you will go and try again, and it will finally prosper, or you'll prosper again. Okay. So that is the thing that, you got to pass these tests. And every reward is not after you die. There's so many things that the church sings about and believes that's not really kingdom. It's not what he was talking about, but he's going to try your reins and your heart and your mind, and he's going to test you in every single area, in every area of strength, in every area where you're weak. He will give you experiences and tests, and we got to get the lessons, and we have to pass them, even if it takes us a while to get over each one. And then, what he wants to do is entrust more. And that's what he's shown me. He wants to entrust more. And if you just listen to a lot of my videos, I probably have a lot of the same things repeated in them about the harvest or him entrusting more, because I don't hear that anybody else is giving that revelation out. Not many. Most of them are talking about, they think death, physical death is totally tied to, the parables that talk about, the wise and the faithful, and stuff like that. So they're totally missing what God really wants you to understand while you're here, and what it means to lay up treasure. To lay up treasure is even when you're helping the hungry, the ones that need to be clothed, the thirsty. Laying up treasure in heaven is even doing that. He said, how can you make sure you will always be provided for, or lay up treasure, or, sow things towards your future, so that eventually you'll see these breakthroughs, or God will give you storehouses later. It may even come first by idea, because he don't really want to drop everything right on your lap. Something may just come to you because it's inherited, but God may actually ask you to bootstrap and start something up, but he may not give you that idea or understanding of how to do so until the testing is pretty much done for your understanding how to lay your life down, walk with a cross on your back, and even who you love and who loves you, you can't let them always come with you at every point in your journey and be all intertangled and intertwined, and they just can't always know. The left hand can't always know what your right hand is doing, because if they know the good deed that you're doing, that the Lord's leading you in, they may perceive it as a threat to their being connected to you and their time with you. And, controllers and people that love you, because they don't understand how brainwashed and controlled they really are from this world, and how much they manipulate and operate from manipulation and stuff. But these people, the enemy will use to try to hinder you from the work that the Lord has given to your hand. So you don't let your left hand know what your right is doing all the time, because they are the ones that usually have to manifest in their flesh, and they play sidetracker and hindrance to what God's trying to do for you. Even when you are trying to give food to the hungry person, I've had someone say, "Why are you giving them that?" I'm like, it's just the rest of the crumbs of the bag and the chips that are in the bag. And that's all I had when someone said, "Do you have food?" And just because I gave that lady some food, which did not really look like a homeless lady, but she was trying to look like it, but she was wearing all white, and a bright light was shining over her in the nighttime, and her eyes were glowing, and I discerned it's an angel. But I went to give her the chips, and she started rejoicing and singing like old hymns. And it was so wild, because I discerned it was an angel, while the person that was on my side accusing, "Why are you giving her the crumbs of the chips? Get away from her." And I'm not afraid, because I know that I felt a tug on my heart to go give. And so sometimes you need to entertain strangers, because sometimes strangers are angels, and sometimes you don't even see what's really in someone. I could see sometimes into people, and just by God. And then I know, okay, this is really a test. So pass it. Try to give what they're asking. And usually they're asking something so tiny, but you're busy and you don't want to take time for them. They just want 50 cents or $1. And if you let the accuser talk to you through people or in your head, it's going to say, don't give it. But I'm telling you, this is a pathway to laying up treasure. So you don't have to run out and do everything for all the homeless people you ever see right now. But when the Lord shows you and you're just on your way somewhere and you see him and he shows you, that is also to lay up treasure, to help someone, to put them in a housing, to put them in somewhere, to give them food sometimes, to share some of what you have, it is to lay up treasure. It is also qualifying you to manage more. So if you will, if you have a desire to do more ministry, which there will always be someone out there already doing it, and but maybe God gives you an idea and you're just like, I don't know how it's going to happen. Just start with what the Lord is showing you, because that is how you sow for the future. That is how you lay up treasure, and he will bring the right people, connections, and everything. And he will set you on his right side, because you will be, and you'll know when you're one set on the right side in the kingdom, because he's with you. You just know you can, and then you can discern when you're set on the right side. You don't question what's sheep or goat anymore. You just know by the Spirit. This one knows him. This one knows him too. But what's sad is the majority is goat. So I don't want to get into that, but what you have to do is make sure you follow the Spirit and follow his leading. And so do I. And so I don't know if this helps you in your walk with him. I don't know what season you're in of your Christian walk or of your walk with him, but you will learn that he will ask of you everything and everyone and all, even everything where you're strong in, as I said before, it will be tested. And you may see a weakness in that area for a time or for years, but he's testing you in some ways. Anyway, this is what I have right now. My name is Anna Clark. You can find me on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Apostle Anna Clark. So that's my message right now. That's what I got to share. And I hope that helps you and gives you more than a shallow look at Matthew 25, but to understand what is the purpose of it and how can we apply that now, because it is the kingdom age.